Most people don't fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail quietly, slowly, without even realizing it. Because the inner flame was never truly lit. They wait for motivation to strike, for confidence to appear, or for the right moment to arrive. But success has never worked that way. Success begins long before results show up, in a silent moment when a person decides to stop drifting and start directing their life. That moment doesn't make headlines. No one applauds it, yet it changes everything. Right now, there is more potential inside you than you have ever used. The question is not whether you can succeed, but whether you are willing to ignite what's already there. Because once the flame is lit, once responsibility is accepted, desire becomes strong, and discipline becomes daily. Life has no choice but to respond. This is not about luck, shortcuts, or overnight success. This is about sparking the fire that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Everything meaningful in life begins with a decision. Long before results change, before income increases, before confidence grows, there is a quiet moment when a person decides that the current way of living is no longer acceptable. This is where the flame of success is first sparked. Most people wait for motivation, clarity, or perfect timing, but success has never required perfect conditions. It requires a firm internal decision. Until that decision is made, life continues on autopilot, repeating the same patterns and producing the same outcomes year after year. Many people confuse movement with progress. They stay busy, they work hard, and they stay occupied, yet nothing truly changes. The reason is simple. Activity without decision leads to repetition, not transformation. A real decision draws a line in the sand. It says, I will no longer tolerate average results, or I refuse to stay where I am. That internal declaration shifts how a person thinks, acts, and responds to challenges. Once the decision is made, the mind begins to search for solutions instead of excuses. This decision is not loud or dramatic. It does not require announcing it to the world. In fact, the most powerful decisions are often private. They happen in moments of honesty. When someone looks at their life and accepts that improvement is necessary. That honesty is rare, because it requires courage. It is easier to blame circumstances than to admit personal responsibility for change. But success always begins with truth, and truth begins with a decision to face reality as it is. When a person decides to change, standards begin to rise. Standards are not what you hope for, they are what you demand of yourself. Without a decision, standards remain low, and low standards quietly shape behavior. People settle for less, tolerate distractions, and accept habits that work against them. The moment the decision is made, standards increase. What was once acceptable becomes unacceptable. This shift alone can change the direction of a life. A decision also awakens awareness. Before the decision, opportunities pass unnoticed, because the mind is not alert. After the decision, the same world suddenly looks different. Books, ideas, mentors, and opportunities that were always present now stand out. This is not luck, it is focus. The mind moves toward what it has committed to. Once you decide to improve, your attention naturally aligns with growth. Indecision, on the other hand, is one of the greatest enemies of success. Indecision keeps people trapped between comfort and desire. They want more, but not enough to commit. They talk about change, but they never decide. As a result, life drifts forward while they remain stuck. Time passes, but progress does not. Jim Rohn often warned that if you don't decide where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else, usually somewhere you didn't choose. A true decision also prepares a person for difficulty. When challenges arise, those who have not decided look for a way out. Those who have decided look for a way through. The decision acts as an anchor during moments of doubt. It reminds you why you started when motivation fades. Success is not built on constant excitement. It is built on commitment during ordinary and uncomfortable days. The power of decision is that it changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes, wishes, or tries, and you begin to see yourself as someone who chooses. That shift is subtle but life-altering. Once you become a person who decides, discipline becomes easier, learning becomes natural, and growth becomes inevitable. Success does not begin when circumstances change. It begins when you do. The spark of success is lit the moment you decide that your life will no longer be left to chance. The moment a person accepts full responsibility for their life, everything begins to change. Until that moment, progress remains limited because power is scattered. Blame quietly steals energy. When someone blames the economy, their family, their past, or their lack of opportunity, they give away control. Jim Rohn taught that personal responsibility is not a burden, it is the doorway to personal power. The flame of success grows only when a person takes ownership of both their results and their future. Most people misunderstand responsibility. They believe it means guilt or self-criticism, but true responsibility is simply honest awareness. It is the understanding that where you are is largely the result of choices you have made, actions you have taken, and habits you have repeated. This realization can feel uncomfortable at first, but it is also liberating. If your choices created your current situation, then new choices can create a new one. Blame is attractive because it feels justified. Circumstances are rarely perfect, and unfairness exists in every society. But Jim Rohn emphasized that life does not respond to need, complaints, or fairness. It responds to value. When someone spends their energy explaining why things are difficult, they have no energy left to improve their skills, mindset, or discipline. Responsibility redirects attention from what's wrong with the world to what can be improved within the self. Taking responsibility sharpens decision-making. When you know that results belong to you, choices become more deliberate. Time is treated with greater respect. Effort is no longer optional. Excuses lose their appeal because they no longer serve a purpose. Responsibility forces clarity. It makes people ask better questions, such as, what can I do differently? Or, what skill do I need to develop? Those questions ignite growth. Responsibility also strengthens character. A person who owns their life develops resilience because they no longer collapse under setbacks. Failure becomes feedback rather than proof of inadequacy. When things go wrong, they do not waste time assigning blame. They analyze, adjust, and move forward. This mindset is one of the greatest predictors of long-term success because setbacks are inevitable on any meaningful path. Another powerful effect of responsibility is self-respect. When people keep promises to themselves, their confidence grows naturally. They begin to trust their own word. Responsibility means showing up even when no one is watching, because integrity is internal, not external. Over time, this self-respect becomes visible in posture, speech, and action. Others respond differently to someone who carries themselves with ownership. Without responsibility, discipline collapses. Discipline requires a reason strong enough to overcome comfort, and responsibility provides that reason. When you know that your future depends on today's actions, procrastination becomes harder to justify. The small choices, what you read, how you spend time, how you respond to challenges, begin to matter more. Responsibility turns ordinary moments into opportunities for growth. Many people wait for someone else to rescue them. An employer, a government, a relationship, or a lucky break. Jim Rohn warned that waiting is dangerous because life does not reward passivity. Responsibility means becoming your own rescuer. It means deciding that regardless of circumstances, you will do what is necessary to improve your situation. This decision alone separates leaders from followers. Personal responsibility also expands influence. People who take ownership naturally become examples. They do not preach, they demonstrate. Their results speak louder than words. Others are drawn to their stability, clarity, and consistency. Leadership begins here, not with authority, but with accountability. Success grows in the soil of responsibility. The more ownership you take, the more control you gain. When responsibility becomes a way of life, progress is no longer accidental. It becomes inevitable. Strong desire is the force that turns intention into action. Without it, goals remain ideas and plans remain unfinished. Jim Rohn taught that success does not come from casual interest. It comes from deep, emotional desire. Many people say they want a better life, more money, or greater freedom. But wanting is not enough. Desire must be powerful enough to pull a person out of comfort and into consistent effort. The flame of success grows brighter when desire becomes personal and meaningful. Weak desire leads to weak action. When the desire to change is small, inconvenience feels unbearable and obstacles feel overwhelming. People quit not because the task is impossible, but because their desire is not strong enough to sustain them. Strong desire, on the other hand, makes difficulty feel worthwhile. It gives purpose to sacrifice and meaning to effort. When someone truly wants something, they stop asking if it's hard and start asking how to make it work. Desire is often born from dissatisfaction. A moment of clarity, frustration, or honest self-reflection can awaken a hunger for something more. Jim Rohn believed dissatisfaction is not a negative emotion when it leads to improvement. It becomes dangerous only when it turns into complaint without action. Productive dissatisfaction says, This is not good enough, and I am willing to change. That willingness is the beginning of desire taking shape. Strong desire creates urgency. Urgency is not panic, it is awareness that time matters. People with weak desire believe they can change someday. People with strong desire believe change must begin now. This shift in timing changes behavior. Procrastination fades because the future feels too important to delay. Desire turns vague dreams into immediate priorities. Desire also strengthens persistence. Every meaningful goal includes resistance, fatigue, doubt, failure, and slow progress. When desire is weak, resistance wins. When desire is strong, resistance becomes fuel. Each setback reinforces commitment instead of destroying it. A person with strong desire does not interpret obstacles as signs to stop, but as challenges to overcome. They understand that difficulty is part of the process, not proof of inadequacy. Clarity amplifies desire. When goals are vague, desire remains weak. Saying, "I want to be successful," lacks emotional power. But when someone defines what success looks like, why it matters, and how it will improve their life and the lives of others, desire becomes intense. Jim Rohn encouraged people to write goals down because writing forces clarity, and clarity deepens emotional connection. The clearer the goal, the stronger the desire to pursue it. Desire influences daily choices. It determines how time is spent, what distractions are avoided, and which habits are tolerated. When desire is strong, discipline feels less like force and more like alignment. People naturally choose actions that support their goals, because those goals matter deeply to them. Desire becomes an internal guide, directing behavior even when motivation fluctuates. Another powerful aspect of desire is that it reshapes identity. When someone truly wants something, they begin to see themselves differently. They stop identifying as a victim of circumstances and start identifying as a creator of outcomes. This identity shift is subtle but profound. Actions change because self-image changes. A person who desires growth no longer tolerates habits that contradict that desire. Desire must also be protected. Constant exposure to negativity, discouragement, and low standards can weaken it. Jim Rohn emphasized the importance of environment, because desire is influenced by what you hear, see, and experience daily. Surrounding yourself with positive ideas, ambitious people, and uplifting messages helps desire grow instead of fade. Strong desire is the emotional engine of success. It fuels effort, sustains discipline, and transforms obstacles into stepping stones. When desire is powerful, action becomes inevitable, and progress becomes a natural result. Daily discipline is what turns desire into results. Jim Rohn often said that discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, because without it, even the strongest desire fades. Discipline is not about intensity or heroic effort, it is about consistency. It is the practice of doing small, constructive actions every day, especially when you don't feel like it. The flame of success does not stay alive through motivation alone, it survives through disciplined habits. Most people underestimate the power of small actions. Reading 10 pages, exercising for 20 minutes, saving a small amount of money, or practicing a skill daily may seem insignificant. But discipline works through accumulation. What you do daily eventually outweighs what you do occasionally. Success is rarely the result of one major decision. It is the result of hundreds of small, disciplined choices made over time. Discipline requires awareness of consequences. Jim Rohn explained that every discipline affects the future, and every neglect does as well. The challenge is that discipline carries a small pain now, while neglect carries a much larger pain later. Skipping learning, avoiding effort, or postponing responsibility feels comfortable in the moment, but over time it leads to regret. Discipline asks you to trade short-term comfort for long-term gain. One of the reasons discipline is difficult is because it is easy not to do. There is no immediate penalty for skipping a workout, ignoring a book, or wasting time. Life gives no instant warning, but it keeps score. Over weeks and months, the results of neglect quietly appear. Discipline, on the other hand, often shows no immediate reward, which is why it requires faith in the process. You must trust that small actions are building something meaningful, even when results are not yet visible. Discipline strengthens self-respect. Each time you do what you said you would do, you build trust with yourself. Confidence grows not from positive thinking, but from proven reliability. When people lack discipline, they often struggle with self-doubt, because they know they cannot rely on their own promises. Discipline restores that inner integrity and creates quiet confidence. Daily discipline also simplifies life. Without discipline, people rely on motivation, mood, or external pressure. With discipline, decisions are already made. You read because it's part of your routine. You work on your goals because it's scheduled. This removes emotional debate and saves mental energy. Discipline reduces stress because it creates structure, and structure creates freedom. Discipline is closely tied to identity. When you repeatedly act in disciplined ways, you begin to see yourself as a disciplined person. This identity shift makes consistency easier. Actions shape identity, and identity reinforces action. Over time, what once required effort becomes natural. The flame of success burns brighter because it is no longer forced, it is sustained by habit. Another important aspect of discipline is focus. Discipline is not doing everything. It is doing the right things consistently. Jim Rohn taught that success comes from a few simple disciplines practiced daily. Trying to change everything at once often leads to overwhelm and failure. Choosing a few key habits and executing them well is far more effective than chasing complexity. Discipline also prepares a person for opportunity. Opportunities often arrive quietly and require readiness. Without discipline, people miss them. With discipline, skills are sharpened, confidence is built, and timing is recognized. Discipline ensures that when opportunity appears, you are prepared to act. Daily discipline may not feel exciting, but it is powerful. It keeps the flame of success alive when motivation fades and circumstances are challenging. Through small, consistent actions, discipline transforms potential into progress and effort into achievement. Learning and self-development are the forces that steadily increase a person's value to the world. Jim Rohn believed that success is not something you pursue directly. It is something you attract by becoming more than you are. The primary way to become more is through learning. When skills grow, opportunities expand. When knowledge increases, confidence rises. Life begins to respond differently because the person has changed internally. Many people stop learning once formal education ends, believing that experience alone is enough. Experience, however, does not automatically lead to growth. Without reflection and learning, experience simply repeats itself. Jim Rohn emphasized self-education because it allows a person to direct their own growth. Reading books, studying ideas, listening to mentors, and observing successful people all contribute to a deeper understanding of how life works. Learning sharpens judgment. Better decisions come from better thinking, and better thinking comes from exposure to strong ideas. When a person learns consistently, they gain perspective. Problems that once felt overwhelming begin to look manageable. They understand cause and effect more clearly and make choices with greater intention. Over time, this improved judgment leads to better results in every area of life. Self-development also builds adaptability. The world changes constantly, and those who stop learning eventually fall behind. Skills that were valuable yesterday may become irrelevant tomorrow. Jim Rohn taught that personal growth is insurance against change. When you commit to learning, you are never trapped because you can always evolve. Adaptable people remain valuable regardless of economic conditions or industry shifts. Learning increases confidence in a quiet but powerful way. Confidence does not come from affirmations alone, it comes from competence. When you know you are growing, improving, and expanding your abilities, self-belief becomes natural. You walk differently, speak differently, and act with greater certainty. Others sense this confidence and respond accordingly, opening doors that were previously closed. Another important aspect of learning is that it improves communication. The more you know, the better you can explain, persuade, and connect. Communication is a key factor in leadership, business, and relationships. Jim Rohn believed that learning how to express ideas clearly multiplies influence. Knowledge combined with communication creates impact. Learning also raises standards. Exposure to high-level thinking and disciplined individuals changes what you consider normal. You begin to expect more from yourself and others. Mediocrity becomes uncomfortable. This shift in standards naturally improves habits, work ethic, and long-term results. Growth becomes a lifestyle rather than a temporary effort. Self-development is not limited to professional skills. It includes character, values, and emotional intelligence. Jim Rohn often spoke about becoming a better person, not just a more successful one. Integrity, patience, and wisdom are developed through reflection and learning. These qualities ensure that success is sustainable and meaningful, rather than hollow or destructive. One of the most powerful aspects of learning is its compounding effect. A single idea can change the direction of a life. Over time, accumulated ideas reshape thinking patterns, decision-making, and behavior. This gradual transformation often goes unnoticed until the results become undeniable. What looks like sudden success is usually the result of years of quiet learning. Learning also protects against stagnation. When people stop growing, they become bored, frustrated, and restless. Growth creates momentum and purpose. Jim Rohn believed that progress equals happiness. Continuous learning ensures that progress never stops. By committing to learning and self-development, a person continuously increases their value. As value increases, opportunities, income, and influence tend to follow. Life responds not to wishes, but to growth. Goals and environment quietly shape the direction of a person's life. Jim Rohn taught that effort alone is not enough. Effort must be guided. Without clear goals, energy gets scattered, and progress becomes accidental. Goals give purpose to daily actions and meaning to discipline. They act like a compass, providing direction even when motivation is low or circumstances are difficult. Many people live reactively because they lack clear goals. They respond to demands, distractions, and emergencies instead of intentionally designing their future. When goals are absent, time is easily wasted, and potential is slowly drained. Jim Rohn emphasized that if you don't plan your life, someone else will plan it for you. And their plan may not include your success. Written goals transform vague hopes into specific targets that demand action. Goals also create growth. They are not only about achieving something external, they are about becoming someone stronger in the process. A meaningful goal stretches abilities, mindset, and character. Even if the goal is not fully achieved, the growth required to pursue it changes a person permanently. Jim Rohn believed that goals pull you forward and force improvement that comfort never would. Clarity strengthens commitment. When goals are specific and emotionally connected, commitment deepens. A clearly defined goal answers the questions of why effort matters and why sacrifice is worthwhile. This emotional connection helps sustain discipline when progress feels slow. Without clarity, goals lose power and persistence fades. Environment plays an equally powerful role in shaping results. Jim Rohn famously said that people become the average of the 5 individuals they spend the most time with. Attitudes, habits, and standards are contagious. Whether consciously or unconsciously, people absorb the behaviors and beliefs of those around them. A negative environment weakens ambition, while a positive environment strengthens it. Environment extends beyond people. It includes books, conversations, media, and daily influences. What you listen to, watch, and read feeds your thinking. Jim Rohn encouraged guarding the mind carefully, because repeated exposure shapes beliefs. If the environment is filled with negativity, excuses, and low expectations, progress becomes difficult. A growth-oriented environment reinforces discipline and optimism. Improving environment does not always require cutting people off dramatically. Sometimes it means limiting exposure, setting boundaries, or increasing time spent with those who inspire growth. Small changes in environment can lead to significant changes in behavior. When standards rise around you, your own standards naturally rise as well. Goals and environment work together. Goals provide direction, while environment provides reinforcement. Even strong goals struggle in a weak environment. Likewise, a positive environment without goals can still lead to drifting. When both are aligned, progress accelerates. Daily actions begin to support long-term vision naturally. Another important aspect of goals is that they create accountability. Goals make it easier to measure progress and recognize when adjustments are needed. Without them, it is difficult to tell whether effort is effective. Jim Rohn encouraged regular review of goals because review maintains focus and prevents drift. Goals also influence identity. When someone commits to meaningful goals, they begin to see themselves differently. They adopt the mindset of a planner, a builder, and a long-term thinker. This identity shift affects choices and behavior at a deep level. When clear goals are combined with a supportive environment, growth becomes more consistent and sustainable. Life stops being a series of reactions and becomes a purposeful journey guided by intention and reinforced by influence.